Hey, I'm John, the sand carver. What that basically means is that I take an item, put a stencil on it, blast it with high pressure sand, and it leaves an image. Permanent, 100%, cannot be removed. Most of my work is on barware. Glasses, pints, pilsners, mugs, wine glasses with or without stems. I also do travel mugs, the insulated style for coffee and etc. while you're driving, or the insulated drink bottles. One thing all of those have in common is the fact that they are cylindrical. And no matter what you do with a cylindrical item, it wants to roll around on you when you're trying to work on it. So what I have basically done is designed a jig. And I use this jig probably on 95% of my jobs. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. This jig is pretty straightforward. All it is a piece of, in this case, chipboard. You can use pretty much whatever board you've got. Mine measures about 8 1/4 by 14, which means that whatever it was probably came out of my scrap pile. But what really makes this thing work is the fact that I've taken two pieces of, in this case, 2x6 material. I have cut a 45 on one edge of each piece, and I have then, in this case, screwed it to my platform. One of the things that you do want to be very careful about is the width. I've got a 1-inch gap between these two, which allows 99% of the handles on mugs to fit through here. Now these things are just about 8 1/2 inches, which is the size of my plate. The only thing that does not fit in here particularly well are tall wine glasses. The glass itself fits, but the base sometimes wants to drop off. Now here's what I'm talking about as far as how this thing works. In this particular case, I have been working on some glassware using the logo from the local high school, which happens to be a bulldog. What I've done is I've drawn two reference lines on here, one vertical so I can get the stencil level, and the other being a horizontal line so that I can get consistency between where in the heck I'm placing it between the top and the bottom. Now in this particular case, I know that I'm going to come right down through the edge of an eye, and I want this piece to be right about in there. What I've got here is 8mm stencil material. I'll put a link to it down below for anyone that happens to be interested. While I have a large US cutter unit, plotter cutter, what I'm used for this particular job is the Cricut. I borrowed it from family, if you will, and I'll be darned if it doesn't do a pretty good job. What I'm also using then on top of it is a carrier. It's called transfer tape, which allows you to transfer the entire stencil off of its backing material and place it onto a glass or whatever in the world you're going to be working with. But as you can see, as it is sitting here, I can roll this around and get at any part of that stencil that I need to. I can turn the glass around if I want to work on another angle of it. Now these are already done. Let me show you where else this thing comes in real handy, and that is when it comes time to apply masking to it. What I've found is that there's absolutely nothing that beats this jig for ease when it comes time to apply masking. Now what I'm using here is 3M's shipping tape. I have found that it stands up well to sandblast abrasive. I've used the same type of stuff whether I'm doing glassware or whether I'm doing tile or stone any place that I can get adhesion, this is where I use it. I could use duct tape, but I don't like it. This stands up for me anyway, as well as masking tape, which I have, but I don't particularly like to use it. First of all, it's narrower and it just does not seem to stand up near as well. When I get ready to blast then, I've still got it in my cradle. I roll the edges of the tape up, that way I don't have to mask off the entire glass or the item. Very seldom do I end up masking off the entire item. And that then gives me a job ready to put into my blast cabinet. Like I said, I use this jig all the time. I couldn't live without it. If I've got something that I'm worried about scratching, I'll take a towel and put it down. Sometimes even if I've got an item that wants to go sliding around on me, I'll put the tile down just simply because it gives it a little bit of, let's call it non-slick surface. Well, that's pretty much it. I don't know what you call this jig. If you're doing any kind of work where you're working with a cylindrical material, whether it be a wine bottle, a wine glass, a pint glass, a Pilsner, a mug, travel mugs, etc., etc., I don't know that I can give you any better tip than to just simply break down and make one of these jigs. If you don't have a table saw, you can cut it with a skill saw or a hand saw, but chances are that if you check around either at work or at church, or especially with your neighbors, you will probably find somebody that's got a table saw or immediate access to one, and all it takes is just a couple of minutes. Half a dozen screws, glue it if you want. I don't believe that I did. It's not going anywhere. There's no pressure on it. It's not outdoors. And it works. Absolutely works. If you got any questions, drop me a comment. I'll try to answer them out. Other than that, this is John the Sand Carver saying, happy blasting.